So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Wolverine and Deadpool. Now, I've already done a walk-in movies review of Wolverine and Deadpool, but I didn't want to talk about spoilers and stuff when I was doing that. So I thought I'll do a separate video. I'll kind of go into a bit more detail about how I felt about the film and my many issues with it, unfortunately. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I still think it probably is a 7 out of 10 film. But I'll tell you why I feel that way, and also the other issues that I have. So let's start off with the plot. So the plot essentially is that the timeline that Deadpool is in danger of dying out, being completely eradicated, because its anchor point was Wolverine. For reasons we don't get into, we're just told that that's the reason. And because he's dead, the timeline's getting snipped. Now, the first problem I have with that is when the film starts, it's set quite a few years after Logan. No, hang on, when was Logan set? Maybe that's its first plot hole. They don't really discuss that. I'm trying to think when Logan was set. I'm thinking when Logan came out, not when Logan was set. But regardless, the timeline has got 72 hours before it's gone, unless they can find a way of fixing it with Wolverine. The plot doesn't really make much sense, and it just quickly turns into like a time travel thing where they try and find a Wolverine and an alternate Earth, as the multiverse films do. We all know they're set in different worlds. And actually, another thing that came up was that is it 606, 633, whatever the kind of Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline is. The film kind of is there, and then it changes into being on a parallel one, which I think was 1003, 103. And that's where it gets picked up by the TVA. It's not really explained how he's got to an alternate Earth, but he's there. Now, at the end of Deadpool 2, he did have the time travel device from Cable, and it was allowing him to kind of like jump around and stuff, but he said that it had been destroyed. So how was he able to switch to another one? I don't know. Again, a lot of this doesn't really make much sense. It's more just for effect. Now, I mentioned that he's trying to find a Wolverine that's still alive when he discovers the one from Logan is completely dead and isn't going to be coming back. And this leads to some fun setups. Now, if you're a comic book fan, and look, with Marvel films, you get people that are only familiar with the Marvel films. You get other people that have some knowledge of comic books and other related media, and then those are like die-hard comic book fans that go and watch Marvel films as well. So I would say that that's kind of free, because I put myself right in the middle. I put myself in group 2, where I know a lot of the comic book references, either because I read the comics or I'm just aware of the comics. I don't know all the bits and pieces, but there's some really cool bits there. Like you see Patch Wolverine playing poker at a casino or a high roller event, whatever it is. You also see the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, which was one of my favourites when I was growing up, where he's actually lost his left hand, I believe, and his hair's all kind of like big and wild, and he's wearing a black and red costume. So seeing stuff like that was really cool. If you get the references. If you don't get the references, it means nothing to you, and it is what it is. And you know, again, that's a lot that happens with films in general, especially comic book films. But I felt there was a lot of obvious fan service, and I guess rightfully so. But I don't think it's as accessible as they've kind of made it out to be in interviews and stuff. I think you will gain so much more from having a better understanding of some of the more historic things that have happened with Wolverine. And there's a cute bit where he meets a Wolverine that's actually accurate to the comic book character, which is Hugh Jackman being quite small. and also one with Henry Cavill playing Wolverine, which is quite funny because obviously he's been rumoured for a while to possibly be the next person to pick up playing Wolverine. So all those things are quite fun, and it's when they do stuff like that in a film, it is fun. But here's my issue with that, and that is watching it today for the first time and seeing this stuff. Yeah, great fun. Wasn't expecting this, that, and that. But now I've seen it. It's a bit like when you go and watch The Sixth Sense after you've watched it, or The Usual Suspects, or pretty much any M. Night Shyamalan film. When you've seen the reveal, when you've seen the magic, you have that initial kind of reaction to it, but it's diminishing returns after that if you go and rewatch it again. And I feel that that's one of the biggest problems I have with this film, is that it is the element of diminishing returns with a lot of this stuff. So that's quite a fun sequence where he finds a Wolverine that he can work with, and he happens to be in a yellow and blue suit. It is, I believe, comic accurate. It's not my Wolverine. It's not this one that's on this hat. That's my Wolverine. Yellow, black, bit of blue. So it's not that costume, but it's close to it. It's definitely looks like a costume that I've seen latter to that. That's a 91, 92 look for Wolverine. Yeah, anyway. So it's fun that you finally see a proper visualization of a comic accurate Wolverine after all these years. So that's all fun, but it's diminishing returns, I think, when you kind of rewatch this stuff. Then we have one of the main villains, which is a guy called Mr. Paradox. When he realizes what Deadpool's done and that he can potentially stop this from really happening, he banishes Deadpool and Wolverine to the void. Some cool little gags here with like the 20th Century Fox logo being stuck in the sand like it's the Planet of the Apes. Cool stuff, fun stuff, but again, I feel diminishing returns. At this point, we get a load of new cameos, including Chris Evans. Now, I think they were setting this up to be some kind of like big, switcheroo. I think you was initially supposed to see Chris Evans and think, holy shit, it's Captain America. Except for he doesn't have Captain America's beard, any facial hair at all. He has Johnny Storm's haircut. And you can see that even though he's wearing like a kind of like cloak type thing over something else, you can clearly see it's a dark blue outfit, i.e. he's Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four. So the reveal of that wasn't too shocking at all, but there were some people behind me like, ooh. So, it's going to work for some people, but again, maybe because I'm more savvy on the films and stuff, I knew as soon as I saw Chris Evans, that wasn't Captain America, but he was playing a superhero. We then kind of get to see a mixture of villains that we've seen in previous X-Men films. Some of them have been brought back. One of the glaring ones that wasn't was Vinnie Jones, who played Juggernaut in X3. Played by someone else, didn't recognise who it was. And there's a line saying, oh, you're the Juggernaut for this week, are you? Or something like that from Deadpool, as a way to reference it. And it just, I don't know, it felt kind of flat to me. I kind of almost thought to myself, unless you're getting in like a big name, or unless he's going to look slightly different to how Vinnie Jones did in X3, you could have just not used Juggernaut as a character. The reason that Juggernaut's used here, or his usefulness, is the helmet that he's got. I'm sure they could have, found a different way to do that. But anyway, And then we see the character of Nova, who is Charles Xavier's sister. And she's an interesting character, but again, the problem here is that it's kind of not really like explored, like the full impact of any of this stuff. So they kind of dabble with it a little bit, but they don't really go into like really why she's there or more of her history and backstory and stuff. It's almost just, we'll use you because we don't have to use Charles Xavier here or another mutant. It just felt a bit sloppy. Yeah, I just wasn't. I was a fan of the actress. I think the performance is good, but I just didn't like the character, how the character was portrayed. So anyway, she almost she kills Johnny Storm, and threatens to kill Wolverine and Deadpool, whatever. They manage to kind of like escape from her, and then go and meet some other cameo characters, and we get a returning Jennifer Garner as Elektra. We get Wesley Snipes as Blade, and the most interesting one is we finally get to see Channing Tatum's Gambit. Now, for those unaware, there was a Gambit film in development for, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe more than that years, with Channing Tatum going to be playing the character Gambit. The Gambit in this film, because we saw him in Wolverine, X-Men Origins, if I remember correctly. In this film, he is more accurate to the comics or the cartoon. Like, the costume is pretty spot on. It's a really good job. He does a good job with the accent. I was really impressed. I thought he did a good job playing the character. But yeah, it just, I don't know. I think the use of Elektra over Daredevil was a choice. No one liked the Elektra film. I don't think anyone thought she was like a great character in the Daredevil film. So it felt like when I couldn't get Ben Affleck, so we'll get Elektra in. Good to see Wesley Snipes. Obviously, he looks quite a bit older now than when he first was Blade. And obviously, the other thing there is Blade Trinity was the first superhero film that Ryan Reynolds did, who's obviously Deadpool. So that was obviously like a nice callback. But I mentioned it. In fact, I think it's one of the few things that they don't fucking reference in this film. But yeah, I thought that was like a little thing. Or maybe he did, and maybe I just didn't hear it quick because the obnoxious woman behind me who laughed at every single line in the bloody film, whether it was actually funny or not. And X-23's back as well. Now, I did see that she was in this film a few days ago. It was the only spoiler that I'd seen. And although it was a spoiler because I didn't know she was in the film, at the same time, I would have been surprised that she wasn't because of her connection to the last time we saw Wolverine. So it was good to have her back. And then they, as part of the plot to escape, they go and fight like the kind of Brotherhood of Evil mutants that are all there for some bizarre reason. Again, why are they all there? Why are there not more heroes? Like, it seems very lopsided, but whatever. And I said in my review that I thought the fight sequences were quite well shot. I lied, because some are, some aren't. So the opening, which I didn't mention, the opening was a bit like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 for me, in that the opening was so good that I was really hyped for the film, and then I watched the rest of the film play out, and I was like, oh, okay, that was one of the better bits. But I thought that was a really well done sequence. Thought it was filmed really well. Thought it was funny. I thought it was good. But this fight here is where it kind of sucked for me, because it was very grey. It was hard to make things out. Like, it looked quite murky. The action was too kind of fast-paced to really pay attention to what was going on. Bearing in mind that, some of these characters you've seen in other films, and they're come back to make cameos in this one, and you want to see them a bit more, and they're almost like in a blur because of everything that's going on, so you don't really get to see these characters properly. So yeah, that was one of the weaker fight sequences. And that's kind of the cameo side of things. But again, like, no one really was that bothered by seeing Elektra or Blade. People did react more to Channing Tatum as Gambit, because I think that was a surprise. Certainly was a surprise to me. I didn't expect to see that happening. But now when I rewatch the film, I know what's coming. So the surprise element's completely gone. And so I do feel that this is a film that, on your first watch, you're going to have a different experience to it as you will to subsequent films. And look, I appreciate that, you know, with a lot of films like this, it can be the same, but then don't rely so much on it. You know, and I feel that that's what this film does. It relies far too much on cameos and Easter eggs that on subsequent rewatches won't matter. I would rather there was half of those and more effort put into the story than just trying to do some fan service. The music choices are fine. Obviously, I love Like a Prayer. It's one of my favourite songs ever. So I enjoyed its use in this film. There's some Avril Lavigne on the soundtrack, some NSYNC, bit of The Greatest Showman, and I don't think I'll ever think of You're the One That I Want from Grease in the same way again. But again, that sequence where that's played is a car fight between Wolverine and Deadpool. It's the second big fight that these two guys have in the film, and there's no stakes because neither one of them can die. And the first time around, it's kind of fun and interesting. They do some fun stuff in the car, but again, you're kind of going back to the same well, and it's like, what we doing here? What we getting out of this? So the music's fine. The action sequences are okay in general. You know, as an overall thing, they're fine. You know, there's a fight sequence later on with a bus and loads of other Deadpools, which were not really explained as to why they showed up. They just turn up. Like, who's got them together, I don't know. But that sequence is fun. Like, it's an interesting shot. How it's been put together. That's done in relatively slow motion, so you can kind of see what's going on there. It makes a big difference. But it doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Again, a lot of the stuff that happens in this film has got no real impact on the plot. It's just fan service, and if this is the saviour of the MCU, I worry about its future. And that's a lie, actually, because I am really looking forward to Fantastic Four next year. But do you know what I mean? Like, I think if they think this is like the direction it's going in, then... And the other thing as well, and I think this is the thing that sticks out the most, is it is such a try-hard film. And what I mean by that is, obviously the thing about Deadpool in the first two films is the ability to break the fourth wall, is making the jokes. Because they're rated R, you know, they're a lot more edgy, lots of sexual content, lots of, you know, jokes about sex and violence and, you know, really pushing the limit as to what they could kind of get away with. They do it in this film. They obviously do it in this film, but it feels like, you know, because it's now an MCU film and, you know, MCU doesn't do this, you know, we're going to really emphasise the fact that, oh, look at us, you know, doing the things we're not allowed to do in an MCU film, like make loads of references to cocaine and call it different nicknames because we're trying to get away from the censor. Like it just falls flat, because when you do the same joke 5, 6, 7, 8 times, it just gets boring. I lost count of the number of pegging jokes in this film. Not my bag. I don't care if it's your bag. Good for you. I'm happy. But when you do the same joke 2 or 3, 4 times, it stops being funny, in my opinion. And that's why I think I felt a lot of the jokes in this film felt flat, because they felt too forced. They felt too try hard. And, you know, as if, you know, that's, you know, you've got to be controversial. Controversial, that's what people want. You know, that's going to be funny. It's not. The best comedies are films that push the boundaries, but do so creatively, do so not consistently. And that's what I feel this film does. It just, you know, tries so hard to be, you know, controversial and quirky and not what you expect from a Marvel film, that it just fails. And so that's why it's so annoying. That's why this film is so annoying. And to the people that are watching this film and really enjoying it, good for you. I'm glad that you like it. You know, there's lots of films that I like that people don't like, and, you know, this is not the first time that I'm not going to feel the same way about a film that other people do. It's why we all have opinions. But that said, you know, I think the thing that frustrates me the most is that I like the character of Deadpool. I like the character of Wolverine. I like the actors playing them. Generally, I do feel Ryan Reynolds has kind of like got a little bit too samey in his roles, a bit typecast, which is a bit of a shame, but he seems like a lovely guy in real life, so, you know, fair play. Same with Hugh Jackman. But I just don't... I was just hoping this film was going to be the best of Marvel, and it just seemed to be, let's make as many crap jokes, let's throw as many cameos as we can to see what sticks, let's stick as many Easter eggs in to please comic book fans, all at the expense of making a coherent film with a good story and good villains and good characters. And I think that's the thing that I'm just, that's what's disappointed for me. And so the thing is, because it's not, you know, it's not an awful film, that's why I gave it a 7. Because there are definitely things there that are good. It's just there's not enough. And I don't think this film is going to be one that you're going to enjoy more and more the more you watch. Like, there's certain films that the more you kind of watch it, you know, you see little like nuances, and you see different plot things that you didn't maybe not get the first time, or you might hear something that you know, a line that you missed. There's too many comedy lines that fail in this film for me to think that I'm going to find anything new that I'm going to think makes this film better in subsequent watches. And I will watch it again at some point. I've just got no plans to see it again at the cinema. I've got no urgency to watch it when it comes onto Disney Plus either. I just feel that it's a missed opportunity, and it's just a disappointment. Just for me, it's a disappointment. I'm surprised at how much praise it's getting. I thought it would be more divisive. I think we'll start hearing more critically about it as the film gets a wider release. Like, it comes out this weekend in America. It came out in Australia on Wednesday, the UK Thursday. So it'll be interesting to start getting some more takes. I did see, you know, I have seen some other reviews of people being critical of the film as well. But I've seen way more like positive ones. But I feel the ones that are positive are really, you know, because, oh, you won't believe the cameos. Oh, it's, you know, you won't believe how they push the limit of the jokes. And they're not things that I think are going to work for me. Didn't work for me. So that's it. I just wanted to get a few things off my chest about the film. Be interested to see your thoughts on it and see if I'm just being a miser or if you think there's something to it. So, yeah, let me know in the comments below, and thank you for watching.